My name is Richard, and this is If You Only Knew. With all that we've witnessed from the massive polar vortex hitting the country, resulting in a deep freeze and widespread power outages, I felt this might be the right moment to drop some serious truth bombs and talk more about the inconvenient truth about green energy and how, well, it isn't really that green. First, thank you for joining me again and watching. As many of you know, I took a break from the channel in November to relocate from New York City to Dallas, Texas for many reasons, which I'll go into in a separate video. But I'm here now and seeing many friends, colleagues, and coworkers affected by the power outages. Now, I'm fortunate enough to have power, but the cold snap resulted in over 4 million people losing electricity in Texas. Wind turbines that make up 23% of the supply of energy. Half of those turbines froze, resulting in about 12% of the state's total power supply, which is considerable, but fortunately not as bad as Germany, which made 55% of its energy renewable, which means that a lot more wind turbines and solar panels ended up being frozen. In fact, there's presently 30,000 wind turbines sitting idle and millions of solar panels sitting covered in snow. Strangely enough, their carbon footprint is still relatively high as a nation because these sources of power are not reliable. So they need to overproduce and sell that extra power at a net loss. Unlike France, who uses nuclear power and has reduced the cost of electricity 50% while making 1/10 of the carbon footprint. Nuclear power might actually be the better option given that it's had the least amount of deaths per kilowatt. But Hollywood and TV have trained so many of us to fear nuclear power. As you've seen in The Simpsons, there's the famous three-eyed fish. France safely produces 70% of its country's power using nuclear energy. Just for perspective, instead what we have in Texas are these. We have these supposed green wind turbines frozen in place that are requiring helicopters which run on fossil fuel, spraying chemicals made from fossil fuels onto a wind turbine made of fiberglass, which is made of polyresin, which is made from fossil fuels. Also noteworthy, the turbines eventually break down and need to be replaced, resulting in massive landfills, which NPR ballparks that 720,000 tons over the next 20 years will need to be disposed of, which does not include the newer, higher capacity turbines, which now make up much of America's wind farms. There's additional factors like the fact that no one wants to live near a massive power plant wind farm. I mean, would you want to live next to this? This is what it sounds like. Listen to this. Do you want to live next to that? And what about all the dead birds? The American Bird Conservancy predicts that if 20% of the nation's electricity comes through wind power, it will potentially kill at least 1 million birds per year by 2030. And this is far from being the only toll in wildlife. The solar plant in this image uses focus beams with 40-story mirror towers that incinerate 6,000 birds annually alone with this one location. You don't hear much about this sort of thing. However, what you do hear about is the push for a green agenda using the media's appointed spokespersons like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who first championed the Green Deal. And of course, we have Greta, who is now accused by the government of New Delhi of being part of a larger effort to push certain agendas and create conflict within the country after Greta accidentally tweeted what appears to be a list of instructions as to what she should post and which celebrities to tag and retweet, and also to push this agenda. I like this tweet from Catturd. Reminder, the people responsible for all these worthless solar panels and windmills are the same people who believe cow farts are going to destroy planet Earth in 12 years. If you're freezing your ass off right now, you know why. Now, yet we are here, with 4 million without power in Texas alone. By the way, while this was going on, what was the president doing? According to tweets, Biden was at Camp David playing video games. Now, in fairness, Biden did sign an executive order declaring Texas a state of emergency, but this actually affected 15 states. After this, I think it's fair to say that many Americans will no longer be sold on the reliability of green energy, to put it lightly. Forbes wrote, "This blizzard has exposed the peril of attempting to electrify everything." Western Journal also wrote, "Polar vortex is proving exactly why green energy is a disaster for America's power grid." Not only that, but this has sent the cost of gasoline skyrocketing along with the cost of electricity. Here's an article citing oil at $60 a barrel. Gas has already gone up 18% since the election and predicted to exceed $4. According to The Street, price of electricity has soared 10,000% during the outage in Texas. This cold snap has truly put our electrical grid to the test, which has overwhelmed power consumption in many instances, with viral videos like these being shared. It's not just gasoline and electricity. No power means that grocery stores will have food shortages and food lines in freezing cold temperatures. No power also means propane shortages. This week has deeply affected many, and there have been deaths. A mother and child died of carbon monoxide poisoning from trying to use a car to stay warm. Even before this, the CBS article claims that there were 11 related deaths. People likely talk about this for years to come. Now, before we continue, it does take a lot of research time and late nights to make YouTube videos on top of a very busy schedule with a full-time career, but I do have a little help from a product that I love and personally recommend, my secret weapon, CBD-infused coffee. It's made with chaga mushrooms, which is a superfood that makes me feel more mentally alert. I used to love drinking beverages like Red Bull to try to achieve this alertness, but all that sugar makes you crash, not to mention all the other chemicals and ingredients, and whereas CBD-infused coffee is a much more natural way to feel good. By the way, this is CBD made from GMO-free industrial hemp grown right here in the USA without the use of chemical fertilizers, herbicides, or pesticides. A great way to support the channel is to purchase this product and other CBD products you can find at ifyouonlyknewcbd.com, or you can find the link in the description. Now back to the report. Now, so far I've only focused on wind turbines, but solar panels don't appear to be any more green or reliable. First, let's talk about how they're made. Watch this clip.
Well, I hear a lot of the times that solar cells are made out of sand. They don't use sand at all. So they use, I'll show you what they, so this is one of the ingredients. It's actually mined quartz.
Spruce Pine, North Carolina, regarded as the finest source of high-purity quartz in the world for semiconductor, solar, and communication applications.
But you can't use sand because sand has too many impurities. So you start with a very high-quality quartz and a very high-quality coal. And then you put those two together into an arc furnace and you melt them.
The quartz is then melted with coal in a large furnace at temperatures of up to 1,800 degrees.
So you need more coal to do that. So I'll get another coal out. Since when we melt these together, we get silicon metal and carbon dioxide. And the carbon dioxide just goes off and you got rid of the carbon, you're left with silicon metal. This is not clean coal.
Not clean coal.
It's interesting to see how much coal is involved in the production of this supposed green technology. And coincidentally, China has built 3 times as much coal power in 2020 as the rest of the world. And it's also an interesting coincidence that China accounts for 80% of the world's global solar panel production. Again, I'm sure this is all just a really, really big coincidence. But here's a great tweet from Cat Turd. Those wind turbines had a huge power cord and could plug into the coal-powered electric grid. It'd finally work. And by the way, on a seemingly unrelated note, for all those electric cars being so heavily promoted like the Chevy Volt, where does that electricity come from?
So what's charging the batteries right now? What's the source of
Well,
electricity?
here, it's coming from the building.
I mean, is it what's our mix of power?
Oh, actually, Lansing feeds the building.
What's that?
Lansing feeds power to the building. So I don't know.
They're
I bet you they're a bit of coal. Well, they're heavy on natural gas, aren't they?
right now the car's charging off of your grid.
Right. It would be charging off our grid, which is about 95% coal.
We're going to come back to the subject of electric cars, but I want to touch on some other facts about solar panels. Take a look at this tweet. Solar panels is not the answer. Solar energy is a renewable. Solar panels are not renewable. Now take a look at this video that shows how China set up these massive solar panel arrays that were clearly devastated by hailstorms and hurricanes. Now solar energy, it's not just snow and overcast you have to worry about. They're highly breakable, and again, they are not renewable. Also, for them to really work effectively, you need a lot of them. Fields and fields and fields and fields of them, enough to collect enough energy. Many were questioning their effectiveness even before all of this cold snap. And now people are wondering if there might be more behind this green push, which to many does appear to be politically motivated. In fact, here's a list of 36 companies that received federal support from taxpayers, which have either gone bankrupt or laying off workers that are headed for bankruptcy. This list includes those companies that received federal money from the Obama administration Department of Energy. Now, in fairness, the amount of money indicated does not reflect how much was actually received or spent. but how much was offered. However, the amount does not include other state, local tax credits and other subsidies, which push the amount of money these companies have received from taxpayers even higher. Pretty staggering, right? Now, some of the money was recovered, but it would appear that we are starting to walk down that same road again with subsidies, or should I say drive, with newer enticements. And frankly, it's pretty enticing. I mean, in some cases, it's pretty tempting with these new cyber trucks that are so powerful. But for the average consumer, $50,000 to $64,000 for a new Tesla might be out of reach. Sure, there's less expensive options like the Chevy Volt and the Nissan Leaf, but the least expensive option out there would be the Prius at $24,000. Even the electric version of our Harley-Davidson is twice the cost of most of their gas-powered bikes. But electric cars also have their issues as well, like fewer places to recharge, and they don't work that well in the cold. Lastly, lithium batteries can emit 74% more CO2 than conventional cars. It's also too costly to recycle, and 5 times the cost to recycle versus the cost to just mine more lithium. These are not the only questionable courses of action being taken in the U.S. in the name of supposedly green practices. Shortly after starting office, despite the publicly made promise not to end fracking, Biden ended fracking on federal lands and halted the Keystone Pipeline, which were both perceived as potential pollution threats to drinking water by some. But as this cartoon points out, the reality is that oil will be bought and sold regardless, and that it will still result in even more emissions, if that even was the goal to reduce them. The Washington Examiner wrote, after all, Canada will not stop extracting oil from the tar sands of northern Alberta. Instead, it will simply export oil over existing pipelines or to the Pacific Ocean, where the damage from potential spill would be harder to address. Furthermore, as the Washington Examiner also points, pipeline, he did ultimately promote one that would benefit the Taliban and would enrich both one of the world's worst dictatorships and a group responsible for thousands of U.S. deaths. Kevin Sorbo tweeted, the Keystone Pipeline was bad for the environment and the economy. What kind of idiot would want to produce their own resources when restarting war in the Middle East is obviously a better alternative? Here's another tweet from Kevin Sorbo that I also thought was fitting. The U.S. was energy independent in 2019 for the first time since 1957. In 10 days, Biden put us back 60 years. Clearly, not everything we're doing necessarily green. So why are we pushing electric cars and green energy so hard if it's not really all that green? Well, that's the goal of this video, to ask that question. Now, for the sake of YouTube fact checkers, I do need to say that official mainstream outlets have not determined that green energy is the official culprit for the freezing of the turbines, even though the investigation has just been ordered by Governor Abbott. According to this Texas Tribune article, no frozen wind turbines are the main culprit for Texas power outages. An official with the Electric Reliability Council of Texas said Tuesday afternoon that 16 gigawatts of renewable energy generation, mostly wind generation, were offline. Nearly double that 60 gigawatts had been lost from thermal sources, which include gas, coal, and nuclear energy. This Forbes article is also stating that cold weather kits can keep wind turbines operating when temperatures plunge. This is the norm in colder states and in Europe, said Samuel Brock, a spokesman for the American Clean Power Association. Historically in Texas, given the warm climate, it hasn't been necessary. In Canada, when the wind turbines can experience icing up to 20% of the time in winter months, special cold weather packages are installed to provide heating to turbine components such as the gearbox, yaw, pitch, motors, and battery, according to the Canadian government. This can allow them to operate in temperatures down to minus 22 degrees. So to sum up these two articles, there's blame being placed on the thermal systems and a lack of cold weather proofing. But even after the investigation makes conclusions, I would expect public opinion is not likely going to want to even chance relying on green energy. Again, the point of this video is not to analyze the cause of the power outages, but to look closely at the real cost of green energy, which now also includes the cost of having to winterize turbines on top of everything. Now, fortunately, the weather appears to be warming into the 50s by the weekend and for the week ahead, so this will pass. Will Texas continue to rely on green energy as much? I really can't say, and that will be decided by the people of Texas, but I would expect that many won't leave this up to chance again and will push harder than ever for oil, gas, and coal. And it is likely that people will refer back to this for years to come, but hopefully, if you are in Texas, you weren't too badly affected or found ways to get by, survive, and well, check out this guy. He might be the first person to ever ski the highway in Texas. Folks, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like this video and leave a comment to let me know what you thought. Let me know if you like the format. Yes, I'll be doing more stuff like I have in the past that is focused on patriotism and politics, but With this event that took place this week and being trapped in the heart of it, I thought a video on green energy would be worthwhile, and I hope you do agree. Again, more content is coming. This is the first report to come of many. Also, please share this video and send it to someone who needs to see this information. Until this week, I think many were still sold on the green narrative, and I think that this will be a big wake-up for many. Also, if you like my work and you want to encourage me with any donations, here's my PayPal account. It's ifyouonlyknewmedia@gmail.com. Again, thanks for watching. I'll be back again soon with more. My name is Richard, and this is If You Only Knew.